Hi, this is Ben Dockery, pastor at Christ Church in Lake Forest, and you're listening to the Lake Forest Podcast.
Welcome to the Lake Forest Podcast, a podcast about the lovely city of Lake Forest, featuring topics like local news, sports, music, people, food, and religion. My name is Pete, and I'm joined with my co-host, Scoo Walker. How you doing, Scoo?
Very good, Pete. How are you today?
Football weather, Scouts are looking great again. Hey, life is good.
Well,
And we all live in Lake Forest. Hey, we got a sponsor for the show, NeuroNoodle. Hey, parents of athletes, you get a physical every year, right? Well, include a brain map so you have a baseline to compare it to in case something happens on the field. Okay, one of the things we like to do here at the Lake Forest Podcast is put a spotlight on our local people doing local good. We are joined today by Ben Dockery, pastor at Christ Church in Lake Forest. Pastor Ben, thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Fun to be here.
Tell us about yourself and your background, Ben.
Yeah, so my family and I moved up here a little over 6 years ago, and actually moved here to work at Trinity International University. So work on the administrative team there. We started attending Christ Church just as members of the church, and we're in the community that we're there. The role that I fill at Christ Church is called the campus pastor. So Christ Church is one church that has 4 different locations. We have 6 venues, but 4 locations. And so I'm the campus pastor in Lake Forest, and I've had that role for about 4 years now. So we moved here from Kentucky. My wife's from Texas. I grew up in the South around, so Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas. I lived several different places, but.
What is a campus pastor?
Yeah, it's kind of like the, what's a good analogy? So, I'm the manager to the regional manager, director of, that kind of a.
Got it. Okay.
So at each of our campuses, there is a staff or a pastor that helps lead and unify the team that's there. So we have a senior pastor, Mike Woodruff, who's been at Christ Church for over 20 years. And he leads at the highest level. He's our senior pastor. And then at each of our 4 campuses, there is a campus pastor that is responsible for a lot of the day-to-day, week-to-week ministries of the church. And so that's the role that I serve. We got a great team of people here in Lake Forest, and I get to work with specifically with our campus.
Now, what kind of church is Christ Church?
Yeah, great question.
We got 500 to 1,000 people that move into Lake Forest every year, and they're looking for, guidance, direction. Clue us in.
Yeah, so we are considered a non-denominational church, so we don't actually have, in some ways, a religious tradition that we're stepping into. We're not Lutherans, we're not Catholics, we're not Baptist, whatever else that's there. If you're dividing the church up in terms of church history, we'd be on the Protestant side, so we wouldn't be a Catholic church, we'd be on the Protestant side of things. And an independent church that started in 1980. So there's a group of 17 people that moved up this direction in Lake Forest. They started a Bible study, started praying together, started singing together. Next thing you know, one thing led to another. And they moved through the ranks of being at the Gordon Center and then Lake Forest Academy and then the old Barrett College. And then in mid-1980s, one of the members of the church actually donated this land. So we're in the corner, for listeners, we're in the corner of 60 and 43, right in the corner of the big white church. Big white bell tower, 150 feet up in the air. That's Christ Church. And so we're a non-denominational church. And so because of that, the type of people who make up our church community, we've got, any number of folks, religious traditions that do show up. But I hope I'm answering the question the right way.
Oh, absolutely. My kind of church. It's like, who's right?
Yeah, we do have some healthy disagreement inside of our church, and that's part of what we are. So sometimes non-denominational churches are called like the mutt of, we're not a purebred golden retriever, or we're not, sort of the right down the line of the Presbyterians that have hundreds of years of history and tradition and that's there. So, yeah.
Well, you're definitely on the Mutt podcast. That's for sure. Scoo, do you remember Christ Church moving up? Scoo's been around Lake Forest 57 years.
I remember the evolution of it, yes, as he was saying, into the big church on the corner there.
How did they get the land? It was donated, but who gave up the land?
Yeah, so there was a developer in the area who was doing several of the residential area or homes in Lake Forest. And he had this whole chunk. We're on about 9.2 acres right here. And he had this plus, I don't know how much further back into the lot he had, but he developed the residential ring around the church as well. And then he bracketed off this, and he just gave a donation to the church that was here. And so Gordon Melling was his name. He recently passed away in the last 2 months. We just had a funeral service for him in the last month or so. And so he retired out to Arizona. So he lived there out in that area, but had a service back here at the church in the last month. And so anyway, obviously extremely generous and set the course of the church for so many different reasons. And there's people that know, Scoot, you may know more of the history than I do. I've kind of read it, but didn't live through it. But anyway, so that's the short answer on that.
So what kind of services do you have? Is there a food pantry? How do you help the community? Number one, and then number two, how can the community and our listeners help you?
Yeah, great question. So the way we talk about that is that the mission, vision, direction of our church is to help people discover life with God. So if anyone's around Christ Church at all, they'll hear us use that language a lot of help people discover life with God. And we kind of break that up into two primary ways we're doing that. And the language we use for that is to reach people and then renew communities. So the reach people aspect of that is really what the Christian church has been about from its origins, right? Since Jesus, the early followers of Jesus who have been trying to learn and live his way of life. And so that's sharing the good news of Jesus and talking about those. We gather together on Sunday mornings at Lake Forest at 9:00 and then again at 11:00, same service, 2 different times. And that's all the kids, all the families that come together in for those ministries that are there. So 9:00 and 11:00. We have any given day of the week, we're going to have other ministries that are going on both at the building and really scattered throughout the community. But those are the gathering places. And then the second aspect of that, so the what it means to renew communities, we just have a ton of local partners that we're trying to just really fan the flame of the good that they're doing, be a part of some of that work that's there. And so that's everything. I mean, you mentioned, so we do food distribution at some of our campuses. We do blood drives at some of our campuses. We have something called a HOGS Ministry, the Hands of God Helping. So that's elderly people in the community that can't quite fix something in their home or can't move something that's too heavy. So there's a group of men and women at the church that they call us, and we try to mobilize that group on weekends to go and fix projects like that for both members of the community, the church community, and the broader community. We have something called HOGS Ministry, which is people in Lake Forest and the other campuses will donate a car or donate an old car instead of trading it in. And then we will help fix it up, get it ready, and find single moms that don't have a vehicle and try to provide help for young single moms in that area, and do that mainly in the North Shore. So we're targeting different groups up here. There's something called the Justice Center. So we have a lot of professionals that have legal and financial expertise inside of our church, and we deploy them to help serve those that can't, that just need that advice at a pro bono level. So people are coming in and giving their time, energy, expertise to serve in that way. I mean, there's just, any number of things that are there. I'm talking about local stuff. We have global mission partners that we do that with as well. So those are some of the main things. I mean, when people think about Christ Church, a lot of people get connected to the church through the family, through families inside of the church. And so we have a really vibrant youth program. And so we have a campus or a youth pastor named Siler Thomas. He's been here over 20 years, which is almost unheard of at that level. A lot of youth pastors are short-term folks. Siler's been here 20 years and knows a ton of families. So they meet on Sunday nights, and there's, between middle school and high school, 100-something kids that come and do that. And they travel for trips and do some really cool retreats and things like that. So that's a longer answer to your question.
Yeah. What kind of trips and retreats? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So they're up in Wisconsin for retreats for, some of the mix of youth fun plus trying to dive a little bit deeper into the spiritual realities. And so each one of those has a different theme throughout the year. In the summers, we take mission trips. So we go to our upper level students, juniors and seniors only, have traditionally gone to India. That's our mission partner, one of the ones that they go to. That's a smaller trip, as you can imagine. We haven't done that the last 2 years for all the reasons you would expect. We take anyone who's in the high school program to the Dominican Republic. I've been doing that for years, go down there and build some homes. And students love that trip. Parents get to go on that. It's really fun to do that. And then we have some local stateside trips as well. This past year, we were down in down in the border of Texas. We were in Washington, D.C., and then down in Nashville as well. Then we do a trip in the city of Chicago as well for students to come and be a part of that. So there's any number of opportunities for families and students to be able to be involved in those types of things.
Now with COVID, you guys, you seem to be pretty tech savvy there, Ben. Do you have an online presence? Do you stream services? Tell us about that.
Yeah, no. So we, like everybody else, we did our best in that moment to really, we asked people in the congregation that are a lot smarter than us as staff, and to say, how do we need to think through some of this? We happen to have some folks that were really good, had really good instincts on what to do with that were also on the staff leadership team. And so we spun up online programs and live delivery of those things. We did some pre-recorded things for music so we could get all the audio and tech pieces in place from a production value side of things as well. And so that's continued from March, whatever that Sunday was, March 13th, 14th, 15th, somewhere in there, to this day. So when we talk about having 4 campuses, we have a campus in Highland Park, campus in Vernon Hills, a campus in Grace Lake, and then Lake Forest being the first of those campuses. And then, but now it's not an online campus. We don't think about it as a campus, but we do have certainly online members of our congregation really around the country now, and some even that live internationally. You can see all that stuff on your YouTube hits and all the data that comes in on that. So every weekend, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, those are there. And it's created quite an archive of content, if you will, that you can access and find out more about who we are as a church, but also just view a whole service and look and watch one of those from start to finish. And so that was part of that. I mean, we did, like everybody else, we were just making stuff up along the way. How do you take something that's so important to us to be in person together, physically sharing just conversation and dialogue and, hugging somebody and telling a story and laughing and all those things that are important, and trying to figure out how to do that digitally. So we've had a fun last 18 months, as many others have.
Stu, you got something for Ben?
No, I just think it's amazing how big it's gotten in such a short time. And how many are in the congregation?
Yeah, so I would give it a pre-COVID, post-COVID numbers if that's fair. So average attendance would probably be on a weekend service about 1,750 prior to COVID, and it's in person. We don't have we weren't counting in any way downloads or anything that was online at that point in time. So that would be an average. What it is. There's about, overall, there's about 45 staff at Christ Church at all the campuses combined. So that's all 4. Currently in this moment, we're running a little over 50% of what a weekend attendance would be. And then in addition to that, we have, another 300 or so that we think are joining online. So and you guys probably know the exact same thing with your numbers. You're looking at all your data on the back end. How many people listen to this podcast? Did it trend? Did it go anywhere? And one of the things you get is you get unique screen views, but you don't get actual people. So if there's a family of 5 at Christ Church, it's not coming in person, but they're sitting down and watching it. You could put a multiplier on it, and churches are given their best guess. Is it 1.3? Is it 1.7? Depending on the age of your church and the makeup of demographic and whatever else, there's X amount of people watching per unique view. We don't try to do the math on that. We just know how many people watch there every week and do our best to engage with online attendees or online viewers the best way we can. So we've hired somebody to help do that. That's what they do now, is they try to connect with those that are online and, again, help them discover life with God insofar as we're trying to do that. So it's fun. It's new. It's, the innovative aspect of the church, like everybody else, trying to adjust. So
what are some of the reasons do you see that people from different churches leave there and come there to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I heard you mentioned this earlier, there's a lot of people moving in and out of Lake Forest, Lake Bluff area, right? So we see most guests that we see are new to the community, and they're just looking for a church home. A lot of them, many of them have a church background. And so therefore that's part of their value set, their family, what they do. And so they'll show up here and find out if we make sense and if we're the kind of church they're looking for. In addition to that, like a lot of people, when your life gets interrupted and you recognize because of a health diagnosis or family issue or just something going on in job. There's an existential crisis that happens. And in that moment, people are kind of looking around and, there's some immediate things you think that can, quote, fix the problem, that or at least make you feel better in a short-term place. And then a lot of people, after some of those things don't work, they tend to say, is there something to faith? And is there something to God? And what is a church community? So we get people kind of seeking answers to life's questions that are there that will show up at Christ Church. And then, like everybody else, I mean, the church, we certainly say, come here if you're broken. Like, that's what we think. That's what we not come here if you're good and righteous, but as Jesus is inviting those who are sick, they're the ones that need help. And so the invitation is, to anyone and everyone that is, that finds himself in that place. And so people come here from other churches because who knows why. There, could be something they don't like about the color of the flowers, like something ridiculous. I don't know. But most of the time it's something more significant of they're looking for a new experience or had a bad experience somewhere else. And so they would, quote, transfer from church to church. And that's not really the game that we want to play. We try to have very harmonious relationship with the other congregations in this community as much as we can, and set that example for society. As you guys know, it's pretty easy to touch a tender spot right now and turn up the ambient anxiety that we're all living in and create disunity. So as much as we can not contribute to that, that's one of our goals anyway.
Well, Pastor Ben, we have contributed quite a bit when it comes to school board election chat. We're not a political podcast. We're a community podcast, and if the community's talking about it, we're going to bring it up. And everybody seems to be divided. They have their fundamentalism beliefs that it's the way that I think about things is the only way to think about things. Sort of like religion, right? There's some people are just Roman Catholics, the Jewish faith, and whatnot. You have everybody operating in silos, getting their information in silos, their thoughts are in silos. How do we bring everybody together and stop all this bickering and wasted energy? Do you got any thoughts, Pastor Ben? Is there an event that could possibly happen to bring everybody together and stop all this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I could answer that question, I'd be not just a wealthy guy, but I'd be known at serious levels. I don't foresee I mean, if a pandemic can't do it, right? I'm not sure a cataclysmic event in our society is going to heal some of those things. I mean, I think, frankly, the reality where we are, our senior pastor, Mike Woodruff, and I are having dinner tomorrow night with 7 people across Chicagoland, a couple university presidents, a business leader, another pastor, a leading thinker in the political space. And the conversation's all about pluralism and trying to ask the questions, how do you dialogue amidst great disagreement? And so we've got an extended agenda, ask people to read a book ahead of time to think through some of those things that are there. And certainly the Christian faith will inform how we're approaching some of those questions. But I mean, yeah, we're very aware that that's not unique to the church. That is the reality in which so many people are living in today's society. And certainly seems like the political volume on that has been raised tremendously. And so that is guiding most of the conversations most of the time that are there. But yeah, we're getting together because that's part of what we want to contribute to try to figure out how we can be a part of that. It certainly seems like we got here over a long period of time, and it'll take a long time to kind of move forward through that. And so I don't know if you saw there's an Atlantic article this morning on Civil War. There's a writer in the South who's a political thinker who was, he also had something about, not joking, but alluding to a future civil war in America. Again, just things that are like, are you kidding me? Are we reading history? Are we reading like current moment? Like, what in the world is happening? So insofar as you guys are creating that in Lake Forest with your school board fund, I'm sure.
Well, yeah. Crazy.
Well, it's nobody wants to admit that they don't have all the answers, and ego comes into play, and more importantly, have and have-nots come into play, because with social media, let's just talk about Facebook, who was on 60 Minutes. The whistleblower was basically saying they thrive on getting engagement from negative content. So we have people comparing their lives to one another. Oh, I don't have as much as you. Oh, I don't like you. And, social media can help us. It's hurting us more than help us. I'm sure it's helping your viewership, but it's almost like we were better off to the day when we had, three CBS, NBC, and ABC. Ben, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I am far from the cultural expert on those types of things. I mean, here's your $50 word for the day. We talk about epistemological humility, and epistemology. Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm saying. That's your big word for the day. So epistemology is like a category of philosophy that is, how do you know anything at all? Right? How do you actually have the knowledge that you have? And so our approach, or where we want to come into that conversation, is not from the reality of being broken people that not just act sinfully, but think sinfully and have sinful desires. And so therefore, we're not the ones that have a corner on the market and truth, but we do try to point people to Jesus, who we think is the way, the truth, and life. That's sort of a classic Christian belief that is there, and trying to help people understand who Christ said he was and how he lived his life, and what those things mean. And so, I mean, it is as you said, it is a difficult moment to do those things, and certainly the echo chambers on social media only make that worse for so many of us, because we just hear who we think is a broad range of people, but the algorithms are shaping a lot of that for us, and keeps us from really hearing across the aisle. And certainly our hope is that relationships would trump those things, trump the information. And therefore, when you actually get to know someone who you, quote, disagree with, or is on the other side of the aisle, and you find out their kid's struggling with the same thing your kid is, it just changes the whole framework of what we're talking about. And that sense of being enemies with somebody can really change. You see a common humanity and maybe potentially a way forward on that. But I don't have the high level regulatory principles that need to put in place for social media or whatever else. But I think people are going to do it. I mean, you see what's happening in China with kids, and even playing video games, and it seems like there's going to be some kind of like nicotine warning on the side of something that comes up, or you're going to pay extra taxes if you do this stuff, or we'll see what the country tries to do with those things. But yeah, it's real.
Well, Stu and I have seen, people that appear one way on social media, and when they come on the air and you get to hear what they have to say, it's like two different people. Isn't that right, Stu?
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
When you get in front of them and talk to them, it's a different, whole different world. Just what you're saying is, some have the same problems you do, and vice versa.
Yeah. Well, let me flip the question on you guys. So what can Christchurch do you think, to serve and love the Lake Forest community well? You guys talk to people all the time. And what do you think how the church can contribute in this current moment?
Stu? No, I'll give you an answer. I think what you're doing with the online presence, I think you're bigger than Lake Forest to get the message out there, because I think people actually going to a physical location, I don't know if that's ever going to get back to where it was, but I definitely think it can expand even larger with people that want to tune in and what they want to hear what you have to say. I think, going to taking the kids up to Wisconsin, I think that's a great thing to see, so the kids can understand what it's like not to be able to be on their phone 24 hours a day. I think that adds a lot to the community. Having a safe place to go, if you do want to go in person, you don't know which religion is which, because everybody's saying, hey, just starting with Jesus Christ, is there a Jesus or not, right? You go to the Jewish faith and they say, well, wait a minute, So I think you keep doing what you're doing and expanding with your technology so more people can tune in. I think that's great. School, you got an opinion?
Not really, but I just think being non-denominational, I think welcomes in more people than going to a specific church. Not that going to a specific church is wrong, but I think that alone in the community is something good, because it does get people who aren't at a certain church over there and understanding what you guys do and all that. So And I think that the stuff you're doing externally with the kids and adults and all that is fantastic.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's good.
No, we like you. Of course, we love Reverend Luke Back, of course, Ben.
Nobody's as cool as Luke Back, man.
I mean,
He's got that Texas act. I mean, that guy's amazing.
Oh, he is a walking Xanax. I love it, man. He'll just chill you out.
He is. Church of the Holy Spirit is fortunate to have him there. So
no, hey, Christ Church, Church of the Holy Spirit, you guys, it just goes to show you, Scoo, the line for us to get into heaven is getting longer and longer with each show that we do. Ben, anything I miss on the show today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two things I would invite folks out to is October the 11th. So Monday night, we rent out Mickey Finn's in Libertyville. It's a men's event, and we're bringing in Jeff Kemp. He's a former NFL player and leads a Christian ministry. So we're bringing him to talk about just men's issues that are there. And so we'll be at Mickey Finn's 7 p.m. that night. It's always fun to see guys from all over the place that are part of that event. And then we do something called Trunk or Treat, which is exactly what it sounds like. And we pull up a bunch of cars in the parking lot. We'll do that on a Sunday, October the 24th in the afternoon, 3 to 5. So families from all over are welcome to come to that and get their kids all dressed up kind of pre-Halloween and come around. The local fire department will be here, some of that stuff. So it's just a fun day to bring your kids and to meet some others in the family. So I'd say those two things, other than coming on a weekend, those would be two things coming up that'd be great to have anyone in Lake Forest, Lake Bluff community come out to.
You can count on us, Ben.
All right, I'll see you, Mickey Fence.
That's right. Candy? I mean.
And just so you know, Ben, we tell everybody on the show we'll be at their event. So
that's right. You'll be at everything. Love it.
May lightning strike me. I'm getting pretty good at that.
Yeah. So you guys probably heard this old joke, but recently two neighbors died and went to heaven, and one was a pastor, one was the Uber driver, and they dropped the Uber driver off at his mansion, and it was like this massive gold, just huge palatial estate. And so the pastor's thinking, holy smokes, if this normal Uber driver guy gets that, like, wait till I get mine. So they go down further in the neighborhood. The angel drops him off at this little shack. And he's like, is this my place? Are you kidding me? And he's like, what's the deal? How come he's there and I'm here? And he said, well, every time you preached, everybody would fall asleep. And every time that guy drove, everybody would pray. So he gets the, he directed more people to God than you did. So that may be true for you, Pete. It may be that you're causing school board chaos and people are praying about it. And I'm trying to preach and they're going to sleep. So.
Well, they're trying to change my first name to GD. Ben, what's the best way for our listeners to learn more about Christ Church? Is it christchurchil.org?
Yeah, that's it. The website really is the best place. Coming in person and talking to somebody in the church is probably ideal, and website would give you all the ways that you can do that. So,
Pastor Ben, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Thanks for doing what you guys do.
Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
We're gonna do this again. We're gonna need your help.
Yeah, you need to get our senior pastor, Mike Woodruff, on here. We'll make sure that you can get all the, he's the strategic high level thinker on this. So we'll bring him on next time.
Well, then we got to find a high level thinker.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Lake Forest Podcast. Please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and smash that like button on Facebook, Instagram, and follow us on Twitter. Let us know what you'd like to hear about in the upcoming shows. Again, I'm Pete, and it can be reached at pete@lakeforestpodcast.com. The link will be in the show notes. On behalf of my co-host, Scoo Walker, we thank you for listening, and we thank our Patreon supporters, Church of the Holy Spirit, Reverend Luke Beck, and Matt A. Cue the band.